Hello everyone, and I'm back. Well, it's been a while. Okay, so this is a very simple tutorial on how to create like a fancy transition effect. Okay, so this is what we're going to generate. So I was looking at some sort of 2D motion graphics stuff done in Cavalry, which is a motion graphics app, and someone had done like these very fancy sort of typography transitions. So I wasn't very successful in recreating those, but I kind of made something. So I figured, okay, should be a good enough reason to make a tutorial out of it. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to pick up some stuff from here. Okay, so I'm going to take this grid and these two fonts that I have. So the thing is, this is between two texts, but you can use anything, right? You can transition between attributes, you can transition between images, whatever you feel like. The rules should be the same. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I don't need these things. Like I had added some additional nodes in there. I don't need them. So what I have is I have two letters. I have C and I have A, and that's what we're going to transition between. So what we'll do is firstly, we're going to generate two attributes using a mask from geometry. So we will transfer these shapes as attributes onto my grid. Okay, so my grid is 10 by 10 and 200 by 200. Okay, so you just need a lot of segments so that there's enough geometry there so you can transfer the attributes. Okay, so we're going to take a mask from geometry and we'll call this, so this will be the first one. This is generating a C, and I'll call this C, and I'll just make it thin. Like I don't want a lot of blending here. Okay, so I'm just going to make it thin enough, because what I'm eventually going to do is I'm going to scatter points. Okay, so I don't want the point distribution to be really smooth. I want it to be like pretty sharp. Okay, so this is C, and then I'll just pick up another one, and this will be A, and you have this. Okay, now just to show it in a very simple way, if I take an attribute and just float, and I can call this as blend. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this to blend between these two attributes. So the way it works is we're going to set the operation to set always, and we'll call this A. So it's going to take this attribute and blend it into that attribute. And we're going to do remap attribute, and it will remap to C. So if I visualize A, right now I'll get C. Okay, because this is remapping that to, to C. But what you can do is you can turn on blend, and then if you lower this, you can sort of blend between these two. But what we want is, let's say you want to do something a little more fancy with the blend. Okay, so we can sort of generate a mask. Okay, so I'm going to take another float attribute. We'll call attribute just float, and I'll call this mask. And let's just say I want to do like a radial mask. Okay, so I'm going to call this mask. You can call it anything you want. Like over here, it looks for a constant or an attribute. Whatever attribute you want, you can just type in the name. Okay, so we'll just call it mask, and let's visualize the mask. And what I want is, let's do set always. We'll set it to radial. And yeah, why can't I see this? I have no idea. It should be visible. Okay, anyways, let's just do this and then we'll see what's happening. Okay, so I'll keep it to 0 and I'll keep it like this. Okay, so it's a little sharp like that. Okay, and I'll do alt click and I'll come to about 48 and I'll just move it out to around 5. So you'll get it, opening up like this. This is weird. Okay, hold on a second. Let's just put a color and see if it's actually making anything. This is, yeah, there you go. Okay, now it decides to show up. Okay, fine. I think it's a bug. Okay, so there you go. So you have like this. Maybe we should go larger. Okay, so I'll just sort of zoom out and I'll go larger. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So now I can come back here. I'll go back to visualizing A. And in the blend, instead of using a value, I can use an attribute and it's mask. So what you'll get is you'll get this. Okay, and if you want to reverse it, we can reverse it. Like what I can do is I can put this as C and put this as A. And if you visualize C, so now you're going from like, A to C. Okay, so either ways is fine. Okay, so the attribute that we now need to bring in is going to be C, not A. Okay, so this is fine. Let's do one thing. Let's just blend it slightly. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, but this looks very static. Okay, so what we want to do is, let's say we want to make it look a little more dynamic, than what it is. Okay, but before we do that, let's just see if this is working. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to scatter points. Okay, so I'm going to take a scatter and let's just plug this in. Okay, and we have this, which is okay. But what we want to do is we want to change the density attribute. So the density attribute will be C. And what you'll get is this. Okay. So this is not bad. What we can also do is, let's just come in here and we can probably remap this a little bit. Okay, because I have like 0 points on the outside. Okay, so what I can do is, let's see if we can change this a little bit. Yeah, so you can sort of change the minimum value up a little so that you have like some points on the outside. Okay, so we can do that. And maybe even this I can make it like 0.1. Yeah, or the simplest thing is just do a remap afterwards. Okay, so just come in here and type in remap. So do attribute remap. And we want to remap C. Okay. And what we'll do is I'm just going to take this output value and make it slightly higher. Yeah, so we get this. So that's not, like you'll get a little bit. But the problem is that it's sort of flickering around way too much. Okay, so the way you can take care of that is turn off force total count and make sure you're on density, and then it doesn't flicker around that much. See, it only flickers till the point when the points are changing, but the rest of it more or less remains sort of stationary, which is what we want. Okay, so now what I can do is I can take this up to maybe 30. So that will be a little more interesting. Yeah. And I can also come down to my relax iterations and sort of increase that, and also increase the scale by radius so it sort of fills up better. And this will give me a better result. It will be slower, but you'll get a better result. Okay. Maybe lower the relax iterations. Yeah, okay. It could go faster. There we go. Okay. So this is perfect. Okay, this is fine. This is what we want. Okay, now the next thing is I want to make this a little more dynamic. Okay, so what we can do is at this point, where we are generating our blend, I want to bring it out. Okay, so just take a null and we're going to modify this using chops. Okay, so let's just call it out. And what I'm going to do is take a chop network. We're not going to see the, we're not going to see the chops graph because it's just going to be nonsense. Like we're going to bring in the entire geometry, so there's no point seeing it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come in here and first type in geometry. And what we want to do is a few things, like before you start. Okay, because our animation is only about 48 frames, I think we'll be happy if we just have about, that's 2 seconds. Okay. So I think 4 seconds of animation should be good enough, because what happens is if the geometry is too complicated and you try to bring it in using the geometry node, it will calculate that entire length of animation. So by default, it will calculate like 240 frames. So we don't need that. Okay, so what you want to do is come into your channel and, okay, so first thing is change this to animated. Okay, now come into channel and say you start and end and make this, this is in seconds. So we'll say 0 to 4. Now, what you want to do is bring in the SOP. So we need to bring in out, and the attribute scope will be C, and the rename scope will also be C. So that is what we're bringing in. No need to see it. If you want, you can. Like you can turn on the motion effects view and see it, but it'll just be like each and every point will generate a graph of its own. It's garbage. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is I want to add a spring SOP to this. So I'll just add a spring SOP. I won't make any changes right now, but we'll just add one. We'll change it once we start to apply it. Okay, and now we can just bring it out. So just take a null and bring it out. So let's just call it out channel. And I can copy this, so just do Control C. and come here and take a channel node. So a channel node takes the data from your chop network and applies it back to your geometry. So what we need to do is, this is animated. The chop that we want is out channel, and the scope is C and the attribute scope is C, and there you go. So what will happen is you'll get this. So the spring sort of affects the attribute, and now I can make some adjustments. So I'll come into the spring, and what I want to do is, let's increase the spring constant, and we'll increase the damping so that it sort of slows down faster. So what you'll get is this. Okay. So the lower the spring constant, I think the more you can sort of play around with it and see what you get. There you go. See, so you get like more ripples. The lower the damping is, the longer the ripples will last. And we can also try increasing the mass. So the ripples are bigger when the mass is bigger. So we can try to sort of lower this. So just find a balance and see what makes you happy. Yeah, I think I need to just increase the damping constant a bit more. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now we need to make one change before we apply this back. Okay, which is, when you apply a spring constant, there is a chance that the values will go negative. Okay, and a negative density in the scatter will start causing issues. So what you want to do is just take a wrangle node, and we're going to just clamp the C value. Okay, so just do like at C is equal to, we take a clamp, and we're going to clamp sort of at C 0, 1. Okay. Yeah, so this is it. Okay, now I can just bring this back in and plug it in over here. And what that should do is, it should give me a slightly better looking transition. See. So if I don't do the attribute here, we might see some issues. Okay, not. But it can have, like, if you face problems, because I was facing those issues. So if you do face issues, then make sure that you apply a clamp to it. If you're not, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so I can probably just, let's increase this a little bit. And there you go. So it sort of comes to a rest. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's do the final result. Okay, which is, like, you can do an n number of things with this once you're here. Like, you could probably use this to extrude geometry, or, you know, do any kind of nonsense that you want. What I did was, I just did like a Voronoi fracture. Okay, so I took another grid, and we don't need any segments to this. So 2 by 2 is fine. Let's take a Voronoi fracture. Turn off interior because we don't need any interiors, and just plug this in. And what you'll get is this. Okay, just adjust the attribute remap to what you want. Yeah. And if we see this, it should give you like a pretty decent transition happening. And what you can then do is, I can probably give it like a little bit of offset, so it kind of eats up a little bit like that. Like, if you want, you can do some fancy things here. Like, I could reverse this, you know, like I can take this here and take that there, and maybe, like, you know, scale this down. So we could probably get something like this. See. So you can do, you know, things like that. You can probably lower the density a little bit. So yeah, then, I mean, you know, the options are all there, like whatever you want to do with this. Oh, this looks nice. Yeah, okay. And then, like, I'll keep this to 0.01. Now take a carve node, and so that it just cuts it up. Okay. And what I want to do is, I just want to scatter some points on this. So just take a scatter here, and we can set this to density and just sort of increase it. And then take a connect adjacent pieces. And I'm going to set this to adjacent points and just plug this in. And there you go. So you get like a webbing pattern. So you can just kind of lower this. Yeah. So what you'll get is, you know, like, see, it looks like it's stitching it together. Not exactly, but yeah. Oh, there you go. That looks fancy enough. Okay, you can't really make out the transition now, but yeah, you have options. Okay. Okay, so this is how you can do like a fancy little transition using attributes and chops. Okay, that's pretty much it.